This is about to be a very long, very technical, nerdy video on a very expensive niche product. This is going to be a comparison with the Porsche GT4RS against the Porsche GT4RS with the Manthey package. We'll be tracking both of these cars, lapping them, and setting real lap times back to back on the same tire. We were fortunate to have some of the very talented people behind Manthey join us here in Illinois. They're going to help walk you through what Manthey is and how they turn an already very capable car into something even less compromised. So with that, enjoy the video. I've brought some people from Germany to our shop in the middle of nowhere, Illinois. Sir, please introduce yourself.
My name is Michael Grasle from Manthey in Germany.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm sorry that you had to fly out. Manthey obviously is a household name among racing enthusiasts, particularly in Germany. In the US, it doesn't have a lot of name recognition. So explain somewhat briefly the history of Manthey and how you are not just some aftermarket company that throws expensive parts on a Porsche.
Okay. Well, the company itself was founded in 1996 by our founder Olaf Manthey. He was a quite successful race driver, but then decided to run his own team in order to be successful in different race series, especially in endurance racing. We're quite okay. For example, we won Le Mans 5 times. We won 24 Hours of Nürburgring 7 times, 4 times in a row. This led to...
So you've done all right.
Yeah, this led to the situation that some GT guys out there said, if you go to Manthey, they are only successful on the Nordschleife, and if I want to go to GP track, I'm not sure if they are the guys. In order to avoid this, we decided to win the DTM championship last year because it only happens on GT tracks, GP tracks, so it was easier for us. And the company itself, we are 330 people. Meanwhile, today, we're expecting 3-digit turnover this year in millions. So we have different departments, because in the very beginning, it was always when there was a race on the weekend, the shop was closed on Friday and Monday. But now, if people are still scared about, no, there are different departments. We have the street department, the motorsport department, we have an engineering department, we have services, we have events. So there's quite something going on directly at the headquarters, which is located, by the way, directly at the Nürburgring. Yeah.
Not a bad place for an office.
Could be worse.
Yeah. How do you guys go about actually developing the parts? There's this, preconceived notion from a U.S. perspective that when someone buys a Porsche or a Ferrari or whatever high-end sports car, if they go to a shop that sells parts for a car, even a big name, they're just throwing parts on a vehicle that they have an engineer to make this vehicle quicker. You guys actually engineer the parts in-house, correct?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest difference. So if you have other companies on the market who, for example, release their kit for a certain model, they might choose the best products they think, in their opinion, and then they put it on the car, and this package is the package which they offer, which is fair and absolutely good. What we are doing, or what's different in our case, is we think about what we want to have, and then if we don't find it, in most cases, we develop it. So this means, for example, on the 991, when we started, we used a racing suspension in the car. The car was performing great, and all the hardcore racers, they went for the suspension. But the more we sold, the more we ran into problems which we didn't expect. So a customer, for example, called us and said, "The car drives awesome, but I drove home and I think it's damaged." And we said, "What's the problem?" "Yeah, it makes squeezing noises, like wick, 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 wick. And I think it's damaged." And we explained him, "No, it's the racing technology of the valves. They make a noise." The customer said, "Yeah, I don't want to have the noise. Yeah. The next customer said, it drives awesome, but when I pressed the lifting button, the car wouldn't lift anymore, so it's damaged. And we said, no, with the racing suspension, we can't adapt the lifting system. So, you know, we ran into problems which we didn't expect in the first place, because the hardcore racers, they didn't care about noises and the lifting system. And so we were talking to our vendor and supplier, in that case KW, and said, we need a suspension kit which works as good as the race one. It has to be silent. It has to adapt the lifting system. It mustn't have revision intervals like a racing kit. It has to be street legal, especially in Germany. And KW said, this product is not existing. And so we said, then we have to develop it. And this is with lots of parts which went on the car, from braking parts, aerodynamics, suspension, whatever, that it wasn't there, and therefore we had to develop it. And this is something which, to be fair, also for all the others out there, we still believe that there is a market for anybody, you know? So we don't sell our products in telling people this company is not good, or they are not making good products, whatever. We just concentrate on us. And due to our connection with PAG, which they have 51% shares in Manthey, of course, our access to data, to testing, and so on, is maybe slightly bigger than for an external standalone company. And this helps us quite a lot.
When it comes to improving street cars, you're taking, in Porsche's case, some of the most capable street cars in the world. The GT3, the GT3RS is a kit that's coming. Obviously, this GT4RS or the GT4 in the past. How do you set goals? What are you trying to improve in the vehicle? And how do you make the vehicle still accessible to regular people, not just race car drivers? Because there's a lot of factors going in there. Do you take a vehicle and you're like, it needs to be faster? Do you set a goal of how much faster it needs to be? How do you want to improve fuel? Can you walk me through sort of that development mindset in your brand?
Well, in easy words, we develop products which nobody needs, you know? Yeah, that's the case. But I mean, maybe even the car is something nobody needs in the first place, you know. But what
I like your honesty.
Yeah, that's the case, you know.
It's a want, not a need, right?
Yeah, because there will be for sure people out there who say, who needs a Porsche? But there are also people who say, who needs a Manthey kit on a Porsche? But it's always when you explain it to the customers. So for example, we are always aiming to increase the performance of the car on the racetrack. And therefore, it's not really a topic that we are working over Porsche, against Porsche, whatever. So what we think is that Porsche is producing a really great product, but there are customers out there who are focusing on track use, performance use, they like performance parts, and we try to supply this niche of customers, and this is our aim. I mean, you know, we have, I don't know, I didn't count, but I would say we do have 2,500 GT customers, which are 99% of them are racing their cars. And out of those, this number, there are not really many pro drivers. So our main customer is the amateur driver, the lawyer, the dentist, the whatever, who is making his money at a totally different topic, and he's just enjoying his off time, holidays, whatever, being on track, you know. And for those guys, we are developing those kits. But we want to make sure that the customer has a super easy to drive car with maximum feedback, not surprising, whatever, on track, which is sometimes not possible for the manufacturer directly. Just to give you an idea, a 991 GT4RS has a top speed of 345, which is in miles 200 probably, something. Yeah. And so Porsche can't deliver the car with 3 degrees of camber, maximum angle, because of emissions, tire wear, whatever. We are able to do that also by following the rules, but to make it more suitable for track use. And in easy words, we want to make sure that if a customer is not really fast on track, it's not the car. But he should step out of the car afterwards and say, I'm super comfortable in the car, I can drive several laps, I'm feeling easy in it, I can concentrate on the track because the car is always doing what I want to do it, and that's it.
How do you pick, I guess my question is, how do you pick the specific parts you want to improve for the customer? For example, in the case of this GT4RS, you have a different rear wing, you have changes in strakes underneath, you have the dive planes in the front, you have brake lines, and some very impressive looking four-way adjustable dampers front and rear. How do you pick those parts, and why do you, I guess is my question.
I think more in generally, we always have the components suspension, brakes, aerodynamic, and lightweight parts. Those are the main categories which we always take care of in any model.
So we've explained who Manthey is and what you do at this brand. Let's show the viewer what the car is capable of compared to a regular 4RS. Porsche Mark GT4RS.
Can you hear anything?
Tires. One of the greatest sounds in the automotive world. Wait for it, wait for it.
You know what another great sound's gonna be is me puking up that broad I just had. Oh God! Oh, I'm gonna puke all over you. Oh. All right, tell me about this car. Let's give a recap for those who don't know about it.
It's a mid-engine car with strut front and back, really high spring rates. It's a car that you can best describe as a feels car, not a speeds car. The GT3 has a better feeling front end, it has a better feeling rear end. This car is all about emotions. The best way to describe some of the handling characteristics are somewhat busy. It's a car that, you know, has a lot of initial front grip, but as you start to run off the front tires, you lose the front end of this car, and then you have to start managing the rear. It's a car that definitely has a lot of edge to it, but a lot of reward. You have a great idea what the front and the back are doing at all times. But it's a car you feel that you drive around the front and the back, and I know that frustrates you to no end when you drive this car.
Well, there's two big differences here. The first time we drove it on Autobahn, it was in a street alignment on Cup or regular Cup 2s. This is on Cup 2Rs and a track alignment, and there's such a massive difference in the front end until you run the tires off. It's way better to drive in this configuration. It's a very, very good car.
This has carbon ceramic brakes. Because it's not brake-by-wire, you have good feel, but as you start to drive this car harder and harder, you feel some of the inconsistency in the pedal. I think that's really the only thing I'm gonna fault the car from a braking perspective. Is there anything you want, how else you would describe this car, I guess, dynamically?
I think it feels very sharp, and when the tires are on and sharp, it turns in pretty well. The damping feels a little bit too, I would say a little bit not enough compliant for this track, with this configuration that we're in right now. So I'll be curious to see how the Manthey kind of remedies that, Jack.
Yeah, it's, I don't want to say it's a nervous car, but it likes to move around a bit in the rear. I think that's the best way I'd probably describe it.
Shop. Is this car better?
Yes.
Okay.
It is better on turning, it has better stability, it deals with better high speed and low speed damping. It feels, I mean, as we're going to talk about later in this video, it is a lot quicker than the standard car. You can maybe argue how much time is worth in dollars, but I do think the driving experience is quite different. So walk me through how it feels in turns.
It turns in way sharper than the other car. The turn-in feels, it changes directions faster. That's the best thing to put. And the front end holds on more, where before you'd have to kind of lift out of it to get the car to turn in. It turns in and then the back rotates through, so it's requiring less steering to get you through the corners. This is one of the things I really like about it, because you can really work with the fact that, yes, you want the rear to rotate versus you trying to manage understeer, which is why I really enjoy driving this car way more. It bridges the gap between the GT3 and the GT4RS. We complained that you just go right to the GT3 because the dynamics were so much better here. It's so much closer.
It feels less like a mid-engine car initially, even though it very clearly still is. Yes, it doesn't have double wishbones, but it has much better turn-in. Also, when you ride curbing now in this car, it is far less upset by it.
Oh yeah, but for sure, the curbing part is less of an issue. In the stock car, I was just like, I had to eliminate my use of curbs more because it would unsettle it. Here, it just chews them up as it should. The damper technology is way better. I mean, this is a far more sorted car. I mean, if I had a GT3 and I had a GT4RS, this is kind of like a no-brainer, because it makes this almost, in some cases, a little bit more enjoyable than the GT3. It's a little bit more connected feeling now.
The thing I will say is, regardless of what the lap time is, if you're someone who can blow this kind of money on a performance package on a car, what this is really doing for you is increasing the level of confidence you have driving this vehicle. I feel like because you have more trust in the way this car gets in and out of corners, mainly in big sweepers, the rear end doesn't seem to necessarily be as unsettled feeling as it in the standard GT4RS. You're going to enjoy your car more. Obviously, if there's any con to this, is the compromise made on the street makes this a much less pleasant car to live with on a regular road, but that's not why you're buying a Manthey Performance kit, sir. So, show me in a lap why you buy a GT4RS. All right, now that you've watched Britt's lap, it's time to talk about how the cars feel. So for testing variables, both cars were run at the exact same time. We ran the regular 4RS before we ran the Manthey car. The regular car was in full track alignment and was on Cup 2Rs. Both cars were set up by Porsche engineers. Porsche actually flew out 5 people to support this test, 3 from Manthey and 2 from the US team, and they went over both cars to make sure that we had the best case scenario for runs. When it comes to lap times, the Manthey GT4RS is now the second fastest car we've ever tested. We ran it in September and it ran about a 126.2 or thereabouts, and the regular GT4RS ran just around a 127.4, which makes it marginally slower than a regular GT3 992.1 with Cup 2Rs as well, but that car was run in like 50-degree weather. And Manthey will kill me if I don't point this out. I'm sorry, Britt. Technically, allegedly, you made a small mistake.
No, I did make a mistake.
So the time delta would be even bigger in the GT4RS Manthey. They claim, according to their engineers, you'd run about a second and a half faster in the Manthey car if everything was done perfectly based upon what you did. So you're getting, for about $40,000 or $50,000, 1.5 seconds, which, depending on how you look at it, is either a great deal or not. But regardless, let's talk about how both cars drove. So where were the biggest differences, Britt?
Okay, so it comes down to the three main things. So it was aero, brake lines, and then the shocks. So with the aero, obviously you're going to feel that. Well, you do technically feel it overall, but it's really more evident in the high speed stuff. That would be all the high speed brake zones. So like into turn 1 braking, the amount of ABS intervention, for example, would be a downforce thing. But then really considering the cornering mile per hour or kilometers per hour, and the total load it's able to take through that corner is higher with the Manthey package by far. It's more balanced. They're pretty similar balance between the two, but the Manthey is just a little more crisp.
You more grip because of it.
Yeah, so I mean, balance-wise would be like front to rear distribution of downforce. So like it's more sharp on the nose with the Manthey car rather than it's heavy on the rear, which would create understeer. I liked the way that the car sort of like pitched into the corner instead of scrape. I don't even know what the adjective would be, but it would be understeer versus a slight oversteer. So it was evident for me in turn 4, 5, 6, 13, 14, leading onto the front straightaway, the last corner. I think it was great. It's a great upgrade. That alone, I think, is a really sweet upgrade. It looks cool on the car as well. So it's
very race car.
Yeah, 2 birds with 1 stone. But the next thing I would talk about is the rubber lines versus stainless. If you want to take this car on a racetrack, consider the stainless lines as a necessity for sure. I think it's a safety thing, and you'll get more out of the car. You won't be fighting an inconsistent brake pressure or brake pedal feeling ever. The Manthey car, it was consistent from start to finish. The base car, essentially what it did was it did the exact same feeling in the brake pedal for about a lap and a half, and then the fluid got too hot, expanded the rubber lines, and we basically doubled our pedal travel very quickly. So it just
it's not that the car couldn't stop, it was just the feeling in the pedal itself.
Yep, yeah, and I just know from like my coaching experience that'll throw off a new driver big time, is if they hit the brakes and the car does not initially stop the same way that they're used to or that they're expecting the car to. You know, that scenario is just, it's not really beneficial for a guy who's there for track day at all.
So the last difference, obviously, arguably the most expensive difference, is the shock package. Your highly adjustable, essentially motorsports grade shock and spring or damper package from Manthey. How did these cars feel overall different when it came to driving them from that perspective?
Well, so you say overall different. I mean, we were on pit lane. I was debriefing with the engineers from Manthey, and they were asking me, you know, what did you notice about the shocks? And I was like, well, I feel like they're overall, and that connects to what you just said, overall. I mean, it's overall better with the Manthey package, the way it absorbs bumps, I love the way the nose comes down when you brake. It comes down faster, but it stops at the same place. So you could feel the shock kind of load up as the nose pitches. Mid corner, the Manthey shock just had more capability in terms of what it could do with the tire, and coming off the corner, it was way better, I think. But it felt more like a race car, and we're on a racetrack. It felt better. So.
I am a mere mortal, and so is Mark, in comparison to driving talent compared to Britt. Britt gets about, whenever we do this, like 1 to 2 sessions, basically. You build up and you start running. And you're always about 2-ish seconds faster than I am, and it takes me a full day to get to the point. And even I, at my talent level, was significantly faster in the Manthey car. As a mere mortal, the 2 places I noticed it outside of Aero and brake confidence was in transitions. I felt like the left-right transition part of the car, and it rotated more like a double wishbone vehicle than a strut car. I felt like the front worked better, and to your point, you could definitely run curbing. There's 2 corners at Autobahn that you always tell me about, and it's the truth, that you hit curbs hard.
Turn 5 and turn 11.
Yep, and it no longer felt like you were crashing over the curb. The car just ate the curb and kept going.
Yep. And yeah, the car in turn 5, it's about 80 to 90 miles an hour through there, mid corner speed. And you're committed to partial throttle before you hit that curb, and then when you hit the curb, you are momentarily on 2 wheels. It's an awesome corner, and then it falls off at the exit. So there's a lot going on there. Really quickly, and I love that corner to test high speed. High speed bump, if you track what I'm saying there. So how it absorbs bumps in a high speed scenario. And then turn 11 is end of a heavy brake zone, 40 to 50 miles an hour.
You're crashing over that curb.
Yeah, you hit that curb even harder. And that's on the other side of the car, which is great. You get to test both. And yeah, much better with the Manthey package, much better.
All right, so we've shown how much faster this is. We've talked to Britt. You've seen 2 unskilled men drive the car at this point. Let's walk through how all of this is possible, starting with aerodynamics. What have you changed? What parts have been shifted on this car?
So we changed the suspension on the car.
Yes.
We changed the braided lines on the car, and we put an Aero package on the car.
Let's start with Aero package then first. What specific parts are different?
Specific parts is, as you can see here, it's a carbon fiber underbody floor. We have some flicks or canards, I don't know how you call them in the US. We have an additional air guide element here, and we have a bigger rear wing on the car.
So before we talk about the specific individual aero components, what are the key numbers?
We have to look at several numbers. First of all, we divide into front and rear axle. And then we also divide into downforce and drag.
Okay.
And I think it's easiest to start on the rear.
Okay.
So on the rear wing, we increase the downforce from 80 kilos at 200 kmph, 85, sorry, to 160. When we take a look at the wing, you can see that there is a kink in. Yeah. The reason for this is we checked in the wind tunnel. And maybe this is also interesting for the technically orientated customers. Of course, you have on the side of the car, you have a different airflow than above the car. So this means when you see the air coming from here, there is a different angle on the wing than when the air comes from above. So the wing, and therefore, is flatter or more straight in the middle and more kinked on the outside because of the different appearance of the airstream. At the same time, as you know the lever, if you put downforce on the back of the car behind the rear axle, you would create lift on the front. The downforce on the front of the car is quite low from stock. We were able to increase it for quite a lot, but in final numbers it's not that big. But due to the fact that we have those lever here, we're still okay and happy that we could increase on the front as well. And this is done by all the components here and not only a single one.
Because essentially if you take the weight out of the front, you remove downforce, you create an understeering moment in the car. So you have to balance it front and rear to make sure you maintain the increased rear grip without inducing more understeer in the front of the vehicle.
Yeah, and also with the street car, you have the same or the next problem. You know, on a race car, every engineer will tell you down, 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 down. Yeah, but that's not possible on a street car because you still have a parking lot and you still have an everyday bump stop, whatever, speed bump. So what we did is, first of all, we create downforce on the front by this carbon fiber underbody.
So the main difference I see, other than the fact that it's this giant carbon panel, is these small little guides on the sides, correct?
Yeah, this is a little bit more flow optimized. But of course, the underbody floor works the better the lower the car is. But unfortunately, we can't go, super low. Therefore, we also added the flicks on the bumper of the car, because a flick, other than the underbody floor, works always, no matter which ride height the car goes, because there is flick, period, And what we also do is, with the additional air guide elements, we first of all get air out of the car from below the car, but we also avoid that dirty air or false air goes into the sides of the car. So behind the front wheels, you have some turbulences, but you also have the risk that air goes in. And so we guide this out to create a kind of a air curtain here, and also to optimize the rear diffuser.
You also have those Aero wheel discs in the back wheels. What are those doing other than looking cool?
Yeah. First of all, they look cool, so we have so many inquiries. Can I just get the Aero discs? No, that's not possible. It's not about brake cooling. It's not about looking better. It's not about hiding a wheel. It's simply about downforce, and in detail about the airflow next to the car. So I always explain it easiest to an end customer. If you have a wheel, the upper part of the wheel, or the spokes at the upper half, they turn against the airflow next to the car. Because if you drive the car, the air goes from the front to the rear, but the spokes turn from the rear to the front. And they create, therefore, turbulences. When you put a disc on, you don't create those turbulences. So you decrease turbulences next to the car. So the rear wing is more effective, and also the diffuser is more effective.
So I'm going to cut in here because Jack's just taking over all the FaceTime. So there's a lot of work, you can tell, that went into designing these shocks. And I know you talked about it at the beginning of this video, how you had to develop a lot and work with KW to make this fit in here, to get the four-way adjustability, high and low speed damping, and then also packaging in the adjusters, redoing the top hat. So walk me through some of the challenges of doing that and the individual components that you put into this package for customers.
So first of all, we have a four-way upside-down shock. So we have the strut housings made in aluminum. We also have a similar takeover like on the 991.2s, which have an hydraulic lifting system, and we wanted to adapt it. So we are not using a new component here, but it's still the original lifting unit, the cylinder, which we take over from the original shock. So this means you would get a strut housing from us, which is not threaded, but it has a kink. So you just take over the lifting unit from the original one. This helps you, first of all, it's an original part. Secondly, your original button inside the car is working, the same pump, so it will drop at a certain speed, so it's the easiest way, plug and play. Then we have a 40mm upside down shock. We have a top mount with spherical bearing, and we have the adjusters here directly at the shock. Therefore, we had to use anti-rotation construction here, because otherwise we might have faced the topic that the valves might touch the chassis. And this is a quite sophisticated construction, but it was required in order to get this system into the car.
Okay, so the next question would be is, in terms of, you hear this a lot with high performance dampers, as you get to this level with four-way adjustability, you're reducing seal stiction and all the things in a shock that are more race inspired. So as a customer, and you're putting a lot of miles on the street and track, how is a customer going to face doing rebuilds? Is this just, if you have a leak or a problem with it, can you get it revalved, or is it just replace the shock?
It's similar to any other street car product at Porsche. So there is no revision needed. The shock is supposed to run the same run time or lifetime like the original shock, so there is no difference.
Okay.
And you can theoretically revalve it or refurbish it, just like a standard KW shock. In the US, there are at the moment 42 Manthey certified dealers. We're increasing the number steadily by PCNA offering trainings to interested dealerships. And you just go there. They also, and this is quite a topic, so we're talking here about the product itself, but one of the most important things here is to get the right setup and right alignment in there, and therefore all the certified Manthey dealerships have our Manthey alignment system, because, as I said before, there is a complete setup sheet for the car, but we gave camber, toe, ride height, sway bar, wing position, and so on. So every customer can be sure that the setup at these certified dealerships is similar to bringing the car directly to Manthey. Okay. And that's the most important thing.
I think that's one of the things that is lost in some of this is you think about buying a suspension kit and it's always on you to find a shop to work on it. And I think that's a huge part of this is if I bought this and I was somebody that was going to the track, I'd want to have a dealership service it. And the fact that that's part of this process and knowing that the setup's going to be right, because that's a big, thing, and I know big fear for a lot of people, especially when you throw four-way adjustable shocks. You already have that set for most people. The last question about the shocks is, in terms of development, how long did it take you to adopt and get this to market? Because you mentioned KW didn't have this, right? Like you had to develop it, you had to engineer it. So how long did it take you to design it, test it, validate, and build it, and then deliver it? Was it a year? Was it 2 years?
Well, it was, the four-way adjustable shock was existing in the race car, but to make it usable in a street car, for example, a race car doesn't have a dust cover. Right. Yeah, a race car requires, or the shock of a race car requires a service every 6,000 kilometers. This is not acceptable for a street customer. So we had to find sealed units. We have to find, as you said, the dust covers and so on. So KW, of course, they were also developing this, but we required that. And for the setup itself, first of all, when we do this, we always go on the 7-post rig, which also is supplied by KW. And
it's a shaker rig.
Yeah. And we more or less find a baseline. And then we luckily have the situation that we can test those cars in industry pool testing at the Nürburgring, where there is just manufacturers allowed to test because it's the easiest environment. But we also have to go to different other tracks because, it's not only the Nordschleife. We had been to Spa, to Portimao, to Hockenheim, whatever, just to make sure to get the most data out of them. And of course, there were lots of testing involved. We changed spring rates, we changed damper settings, and this was the final outcome.
You're using external canisters on each four corners of these shocks. Can you explain why, and then explain your adjuster strategy for making the shock feel more consistent?
So other than for maybe some other technologies from other manufacturers, the external reservoir in our situation, or also at KW in general, is not that it's part of the damping technology, but it first of all adds another volume for the oil, especially when you have shorter shocks, for example. But you also make sure with the pressurized reservoir that the oil stays around the valves, because this is the most mandatory thing. And from a technical perspective, the four-way adjustable shock simply requires to have the adjusters directly at the sliding tube, and you can't separate them in the reservoir. But the reservoir is still there just for volume and for pressurizing.
Final thoughts on the GT4RS Manthey kit. Huge thanks to Porsche North America. Kyle and Luke flew out to support this test, and of course the folks at Manthey, who got on a plane from Germany to fly all the way out to Joliet, Illinois Autobahn Country Club to support this test. Michael, Amelia, and Sebastian are lovely people and are every bit as nerdy as we are when it comes to cars, which is a nice thing to see from a small German OEM. And of course, Autobahn Country Club. They continue to support our channel and give us a home to make videos like this. Big track videos like this test would not be possible without them, so please thank them in the comments. And if you're looking to do a track day, check out their calendar, become a member, hit them up. do a track day rental or corporate event, they offer that service. And of course, if you want to learn how to drive or become a better driver, Autobahn's Performance Driving Academy will help you get the most out of your car. Of course, thanks to our title sponsor, Bridgestone Tires, who supports us to make videos like this. And if you are looking to get winter tires, as it is the season, check out their catalog of Blizzak products. So what about the car itself? Well, the Manthey kit, or the Manthey GT4RS, is for a niche upon a niche upon a niche of the population. You're looking for somebody who A, owns a GT product, B, tracks said GT car, GT3, GT4RS, GT3RS, and C, is looking to get even more out of said car. They either want it to be more confidence-inspiring or faster around a track. That's where this Manthey kit comes in. Essentially, you're paying a lot of money to go, at least around our track, a second and change quicker, which is only a small part of the story. So yes, your money, regardless on how you value it, makes the car quicker. But what it is really doing is making it more confidence-inspiring. It doesn't matter what skill level of driver you are, all the way from Britt, a winning IMSA driver, to me, someone who does a lot of track days, to somebody who does only a couple track days a year, you will become a more confident driver behind your wheel. And you are getting that in a package that has a warranty, is street legal, and is essentially plug and play. And I think that is what you are paying for. Yes, there are other aftermarket options for the GT4RS or GT3s of the world to make them go quicker, but I don't think there is a package that just works right out of the box like this does, that has their support, has their know-how, and I know for a fact will make the car better to drive. So if you are that person who A, can afford this, B, tracks their GT product, and C, wants it to be even more track capable, I do think this kit is worth the money. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon.